Did Sydney Sweeney's latest movie really flop because she kept her clothes on? That's the question lighting up Hollywood gossip circles tonight. A storm that started with a single quote from a plus-size model and spiraled into a full-blown debate about fame, image, and how far an actress must go to stay on top. Sydney Sweeney's name has always drawn headlines, from Euphoria's raw intensity to the romantic sparkle of Anyone But You. But this time, the spotlight isn't celebrating her performance. It's dissecting her wardrobe. Within days of her new movie's release, social media turned ruthless. One voice called her career skin-based, another accused her of losing the crowd. Then Ruby Rose stepped in, igniting the controversy like gasoline on open fire. What followed wasn't just celebrity drama, it became a mirror reflecting Hollywood's ugliest expectation, that a woman's worth on screen still depends on how much she shows. But Sydney didn't stay silent, and that's where the story really begins. When Christie hit theaters, the numbers spoke louder than any review. Just $1.3 million on over 2,000 screens, a staggering low that placed it among the worst wide-release openings in recent memory. Critics scrambled for answers. Was it poor marketing, bad timing, or something deeper? A clash between expectation and evolution. This was supposed to be Sydney Sweeney's turning point. Gone were the sultry, wild-eyed characters of Euphoria or the rom-com charm of Anyone But You. In Christie, she stepped into the bruised, bloodied shoes of Christy Martin, a real-life boxing champion who survived violence, betrayal, and near death to reclaim her power. It was the kind of story actors dream of, raw, human, transformative. But when the film opened, the conversation didn't center on the punches she threw or the pain she portrayed. Instead, the internet zeroed in on something far shallower. She wasn't showing enough skin, and that apparently was enough to start a wildfire. Because in Hollywood's cruel arithmetic, talent doesn't always outweigh appearance. And Sydney was about to find out just how unforgiving that math could be. The spark came from a single interview, and within hours it became a wildfire. Ella Halikas, a 28-year-old Sports Illustrated model, was asked why Christie had failed so badly at the box office. Her answer was blunt enough to shake Hollywood's PR walls. It flopped because Sydney didn't show enough skin. She didn't stop there. Ella claimed Sydney had branded herself around sensual, revealing roles, the kind of performances that built her fan base and fame. People know her for showing skin, feeling hot, being beautiful, she said. When she's covered up, they don't know what to make of it. That quote hit social media like gasoline on open flame. Some fans called it brutally honest marketing, arguing that Sydney's audience expected glamour, not grit. Others slammed it as misogynistic nonsense. Another example of women being punished for choosing substance over seduction. The debate raged across TikTok, X, and Reddit. Memes mocked the comment. Feminist pages called it disgusting, and film blogs dissected it like a post-fight replay. But as the internet kept throwing jabs, someone else decided to step into the ring, and her punches landed even harder. Because while Ella lit the match, Ruby Rose was about to start the fire. Just when the noise around Christie couldn't get any louder, Ruby Rose stepped in and threw a punch no one saw coming. The 39-year-old actress took to threads, unleashing a rant that sent tabloids into overdrive. In her posts, Ruby claimed she was originally cast to play Christie before the role went to Sydney Sweeney. But instead of quiet disappointment, she delivered a full-blown tirade, accusing Sydney of ruining the movie, and even calling her a cretin. It didn't stop there. Ruby went further, claiming that Sydney hates gay people, and that the film's authenticity was lost the moment she was replaced. She referred to the project by its earlier working title, Cherry, a detail that made her story sound painfully personal, like a wound that had never healed. Entertainment outlets pounced immediately. Headlines called it one of Ruby's harshest takedowns since Batwoman. Others labeled it a desperate cry for relevance. Either way, the damage was done, and suddenly the film wasn't just a flop, it was a scandal. But while Ruby's words stung, Sydney didn't bite back. She didn't post cryptic messages, subtweets, or defensive videos. Instead, she chose something rarer in Hollywood. silence and grace. And when she finally did speak, it wasn't to defend her image, it was to defend the story. After days of noise, Sydney Sweeney finally spoke. Not with anger, not with clapbacks, but with conviction. On Monday, she posted a long emotional message on Instagram. No red carpet glamour, no stylized captions, just honesty. "I am so deeply proud of this movie," she wrote. "Proud of the story we told. Proud to represent someone as strong and resilient as Christy Martin." Her post wasn't about defending numbers or critics. It was about purpose. Sydney reminded fans that Christy wasn't made for profit. It was made to make a difference. She explained how the film's campaign helped raise awareness for domestic violence survivors, sharing that if the story gave even one woman the courage to take her first step toward safety, then they had succeeded. It was a reminder that not every project is meant to break records. Some are meant to break silence. But behind that powerful statement, another question started spreading online. One that cut deeper than any headline. Had Hollywood already trapped Sydney Sweeney inside its own image of who she's allowed to be? Was she being punished for daring to step outside the box the industry had built for her? And as that question echoed across social media, the conversation shifted. From box office numbers to something much bigger. For years, Sydney Sweeney's rise to fame has been tied to one thing: her undeniable screen presence. From the provocative chaos of Euphoria to the flirtatious charm of Anyone But You, audiences learned to expect a certain version of her: confident, sensual, magnetic. She became the symbol of the modern bombshell. Intelligent, yes, but always wrapped in allure. That reputation brought fame, magazine covers, brand deals, and viral clips that flooded social media. But it also built a cage, because when Christy arrived, stripped of glamour, stripped of makeup, stripped of everything except raw emotion, the audience didn't know what to do with her. Some fans admitted they missed the Sydney they knew. Others praised her for finally choosing a role that meant something. But the debate revealed something uncomfortable. It wasn't Sydney who was confused about her identity. It was the industry. Critics and experts began to ask a tougher question. Is Hollywood punishing women for being multidimensional? For daring to step beyond the brand that made them famous? Sydney's transformation from glitter to grit should have been celebrated as growth. Instead, it was treated like a mistake. And that's the tragedy of the modern fame machine. When your body builds the headlines, your art becomes invisible. And as the online backlash proved, rebranding isn't just hard. It's a fight against a system that decides what kind of woman the world is willing to see. By the end of the week, social media had turned Christy into more than a movie. It became a battleground. On one side were those who agreed with Ella Halikas, calling her comments just marketing reality. They argued that audiences have short memories and long habits, that people go to see Sydney Sweeney expecting a certain look, a certain vibe, and when it's missing, interest fades. But others weren't buying it. They saw Ella's words as body shaming wrapped in business talk, a polite way of saying women owe the world beauty before substance. Feminist accounts called it a textbook example of Hollywood's double standards. Sydney's fans came out swinging. "She's acting, not auditioning for OnlyFans," one viral comment read, a line that spread across platforms like wildfire. Thousands echoed the same sentiment. Maybe the problem wasn't Sydney's movie, but the audience's mindset. TikTok debates racked up millions of views. Reddit threads turned into essays about representation and respect. Even Threads, Ruby Rose's original battleground, became a war zone of opinions. Everyone had something to say, and nobody wanted to listen. But behind all that noise, behind the hashtags, think pieces, and digital outrage, something else was quietly happening. Something that reminded everyone what this film was really about. Lost in all the noise, the viral debates, and the finger-pointing was the woman whose story started it all. Christy Martin, a Hall of Fame boxer, a trailblazer, and most importantly, a survivor. Christy wasn't just fighting opponents in the ring. She was fighting for her life outside of it. Her survival from years of domestic abuse turned her into a symbol of resilience. Proof that even in the darkest corners of violence, courage can still swing back. That's what Christie was meant to honor. Not fame, not glamour, not skin, but strength. It wasn't a movie made for numbers. It was made for awareness. For women who've been silenced. For those still too afraid to take that first step out of danger. When Sydney took the role, it wasn't to add another glossy headline to her resume. It was a statement that she's ready to evolve beyond the labels the industry keeps slapping on her. Her portrayal of Christy Martin wasn't a mistake. It was a move toward depth, purpose, and legacy. But the headlines didn't tell that story. They focused on what she didn't show, rather than what she did. And maybe that's the real tragedy. That a movie about survival ended up being overshadowed by the same shallow lens it was trying to challenge. When the dust settles, Christie might not be remembered for its numbers, but for what it revealed about Hollywood itself. Sydney Sweeney's so-called flop says less about her talent and more about the brutal double standard that still runs the industry. A woman can be celebrated for baring her skin, but questioned the moment she bares her soul. And when she tries to prove she's more than the image that made her famous, the world punishes her for daring to evolve. Maybe that's the real story here. Not a box office bomb, but a cultural reckoning. A reminder that audiences, critics, and studios alike still cling to stereotypes they claim to despise. So the question lingers. Are we ready to let beautiful women be complex? Or do we still crave the comfort of a stereotype? Because for Sydney Sweeney, this wasn't just a movie. It was a statement. One that proved something powerful. In Hollywood, covering up can sometimes expose the truth.